Kyle Manning stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. The massive circular room stretched out before him, filled with representatives from 43 different species. Some sat on traditional chairs, others floated in specialized gravity fields, and a few rested in pools of liquid that their biology required. The chamber was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate every form of life in the known galaxy. But Kyle wasn't here to admire the architecture. He had been Earth's ambassador for 6 years now. 6 long years of watching his people get pushed around, exploited, and treated like children. The Council had made contact with Earth 47 years ago, arriving with promises of partnership and shared knowledge. Those promises had turned to dust quickly. Within months, Earth was classified as a junior species and subjected to rules that benefited everyone except humanity. The trade agreements were the worst part. Earth shipped rare minerals and agricultural products to dozens of worlds at prices the Council fixed. Meanwhile, humans paid premium rates for basic technology that other species took for granted. Earth's scientists were forbidden from researching certain fields. Earth's military was restricted to primitive weapons. And every time Kyle or any other human representative complained, the Council found excuses to delay, dismiss, or ignore them. Today, that would end. The current speaker, a tall reptilian creature from the Vrex Empire, was droning on about mining quotas. Kyle waited for him to finish, his heart beating steadily in his chest. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Ambassador Manning of Earth, the Council speaker announced, a floating jellyfish-like being whose voice came from a translation device. You have requested time to address the Council. You may proceed. Scene stew. Kyle walked to the central platform. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the room focused on him. He took a breath and began. For 47 years, Earth has been a member of this Council, he said, his voice calm and clear. We have followed your laws, paid your fees, and accepted your restrictions. We have been patient. We have been cooperative. We have been good junior partners. Some of the representatives shifted in their seats. The Quillari Trade Minister, a 4-armed creature covered in blue fur, made a chittering sound that Kyle's translator identified as laughter. Today, that ends, Kyle continued. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from all Council agreements, treaties, and trade arrangements. All Council representatives have 72 hours to leave Earth and its orbital space. After that deadline, any foreign vessel in our territory will be considered hostile. The chamber erupted. The Quillari minister stood up, all 4 arms waving in agitation. The Vrex representative hissed something that the translator refused to convert. Probably an insult too crude for the diplomatic channel. The Council speaker's device emitted a series of harsh buzzing sounds, calling for order. This is ridiculous, the Vrex representative finally said, his voice dripping with contempt. Earth cannot survive without the Council. Your species barely understands quantum mechanics. You have no faster-than-light capability. Your weapons are primitive. This is a child's tantrum. Nothing more. Kyle smiled, and that smile made several representatives go quiet. There was something in that expression. Something that didn't match the confident mockery they expected to see on a desperate human's face. We're done explaining ourselves, Kyle said. 72 hours. The countdown starts now. He turned and walked out of the chamber, ignoring the shouting behind him. His security team, 2 humans in simple black uniforms, fell in step beside him. They moved quickly through the corridors of Zenith Prime, the massive orbital station where the Council held its sessions. Sir, multiple Council security forces are mobilizing, one of his guards said, touching his earpiece. Director Foster says to proceed to the shuttle. Immediately. Kyle nodded. He had expected this. The Council couldn't let Earth just walk away. Their entire economic system depended on exploiting younger species, and Earth was one of their most profitable subjects. They would try to blockade the planet, maybe even threaten military action. It was all predictable. What they didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for 30 years. The shuttle ride back to Earth took 2 hours. Kyle spent most of it in communication with Patricia Wells, the Secretary General of Earth's unified government. She was in Geneva, coordinating with every major nation and city on the planet. The news of Kyle's speech was already spreading across human networks, and the reaction was mixed. Some people celebrated, others panicked. Most just wanted to know if the government had truly lost its mind. "The Council is sending enforcer ships to Earth orbit," Patricia told him over the secure channel. Her face on the screen looked tired but determined. "A squadron of 12 Vrex battle cruisers. They'll arrive in about 6 hours." "Good," Kyle said. "Everything is ready?" "Linda says yes," Patricia replied. "The defensive grid is active. All personnel are in position. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Kyle closed his eyes for a moment. Linda Foster, the director of Earth's Defense Initiative, had been working on this plan for her entire career. She was the one who convinced the world's leaders that humanity needed to develop technology in secret, away from Council surveillance. She was the one who recruited scientists like Greg Santos, who believed that human ingenuity could find paths that alien science had missed. And now they would find out if all that work, all that secrecy, had been worth it. 6 hours later, Kyle was in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. Massive screens showed Earth's orbital space from dozens of different angles. The Vrex battlecruisers had arrived. Sleek and menacing ships that could each carry 1,000 soldiers and enough firepower to level a city. "They're hailing us," a communications officer said, demanding immediate surrender and restoration of all Council agreements. "Ignore them," Linda Foster said. She stood next to Kyle, her gray hair tied back, her eyes fixed on the screens. "Let them look around first." The Vrex commander apparently decided to do exactly that. The battlecruisers spread out, their sensors sweeping Earth's orbital space. Kyle watched their formation break apart as confusion set in. The Council's tracking data showed Earth's defensive satellites in standard positions, outdated weapons platforms that posed no real threat. But those satellites were gone now. In their place hovered thousands of vessels that no Council database could identify. And the Moon. The Moon's surface was covered in installations that definitely had not been there during the last Council inspection 3 weeks ago. "They're trying to scan the new vessels," the sensor officer reported. "All Council sensors are being jammed. They can't get any readings." One of the Vrex ships fired a warning shot, a beam of energy that lanced toward the nearest human vessel. The human ship didn't move. Didn't fire back. The energy beam simply dissipated against an invisible barrier, spreading out like water hitting glass. "Sir, the Vrex fleet is withdrawing to a holding position," the tactical officer announced. "They're requesting emergency communication with the Council." Linda allowed herself a small smile. "So it begins," she said quietly. Kyle nodded, watching the Council's mighty warships hold position, suddenly unsure and cautious. For 47 years, humanity had played by their rules. Let them believe Earth was weak and dependent. Today, the mask had come off, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had its own rules now. Tharn paced in his command chamber aboard the Vrex flagship, his claws clicking against the metal floor. He was the security director for the entire Galactic Council, a position he had earned through decades of military service. He had put down rebellions, crushed pirate fleets, and maintained order across hundreds of worlds. But he had never seen anything like this. "Show me the data again," he ordered his intelligence officer. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Earth's orbital space. Where there should have been maybe 24 outdated satellites, there were now thousands of unknown vessels, each one registered on sensors as a solid object. But beyond that, the Council's best scanning technology could tell them nothing. Energy signatures were scrambled. Hull composition was unreadable. Weapons systems were completely hidden. How is this possible? Tharn demanded. We had surveillance on Earth. We monitored their industrial output. We restricted their access to advanced materials. They should not have been capable of building a single faster-than-light ship, let alone thousands. Sir, our intelligence division is reviewing all data from the past 30 years, the officer said nervously. They believe the humans must have been working in secret. Underground facilities, perhaps. Shielded from our sensors, Tharn slammed his fist on the console. For 30 years? Building thousands of ships? That's impossible. The resource requirements alone would have been visible in their economy. But even as he said it, Tharn knew he was wrong. The evidence was right in front of him. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had done exactly that. And now Earth sat behind a defensive net that the Council couldn't penetrate or understand. In a quiet research facility on Earth's moon, Greg Santos reviewed the data from the Vrex fleet's scanning attempts. He was a slim man in his 60s, with gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He had spent 40 years of his life working on the projects that made this day possible. And now he watched with satisfaction as the Council's technology proved helpless against human innovation. They're trying quantum band sensors now, his assistant said. A young woman named Claire Murphy, who had joined the program 5 years ago. Let them try, Greg replied. Our ships don't use quantum field propulsion like theirs do. They can scan for quantum signatures all day. They won't find anything because we're not using that technology. Claire shook her head in amazement. I still can't believe it worked. When you first explained that we could use gravitational wave manipulation for faster-than-light travel, I thought you were crazy. Greg laughed. The Council's scientists thought gravitational wave theory was a dead end. They spent 1,000 years developing quantum field drives and convinced themselves that was the only way. So they never looked at alternatives. That was their first mistake. What was their second mistake? Claire asked. Thinking that humans would follow their path instead of finding our own? Greg said simply. Back on Earth, Patricia Wells sat in her office in Geneva, watching news feeds from across the planet. The reaction to Kyle's announcement was still spreading. Some cities celebrated in the streets. Others saw protests from people who feared the Council's retaliation. But most people seemed to be waiting, holding their breath to see what would happen next. Her communication console beeped. It was Linda Foster, calling from the military command center. Patricia, we have a situation, Linda said. Her voice was calm, but Patricia could hear the tension underneath. The Vrex fleet has been reinforced. They now have 43 ships in orbit, and they're not leaving. They're demanding we restore all Council agreements and submit to inspection of our defensive installations. What's our response? Patricia asked. I've prepared a demonstration, Linda said, but it's aggressive. Once we do this, there's no going back. The Council will know for certain that we're not bluffing. Patricia thought for a moment. She had been Secretary General for 12 years, and she had made many difficult decisions in that time, but none as important as this one. If they backed down now, Earth would be under Council control forever. If they pushed forward, they might start a war that could destroy humanity. Do it, she said finally. But give them one warning first. Make it clear what will happen if they don't leave. Linda nodded and closed the communication. Patricia sat back in her chair and wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. In Earth orbit, the Vrex fleet commander received an incoming transmission. It was from Earth's Defense Initiative, delivered by Director Linda Foster herself. This is Director Linda Foster of Earth Defense, the message began. You have 20 minutes to withdraw all vessels beyond lunar orbit. If you do not comply, we will disable your fleet. This is your only warning. The Vrex commander, a veteran of a dozen campaigns, laughed. 20 minutes? This human actually thought she could disable 43 battlecruisers with those mysterious ships, even if the human vessels had weapons, which they had not yet demonstrated. The Vrex fleet had shields that could withstand sustained bombardment from entire planetary defense networks. No response, he ordered his communication officer. Hold position. Prepare weapons for firing solution on the nearest human vessels. Let's see how brave they are when we start shooting. 20 minutes passed. Then 21. Then 22. Human vessels are not responding to our targeting locks, the tactical officer reported. They're just sitting there. Fire at will, the commander ordered. Target the 3 nearest vessels. Let's show these primitives what real firepower looks like. 3 Vrex battlecruisers opened fire simultaneously. Beams of concentrated energy, each capable of cutting through a mountain, lanced across space toward the human ships. The human vessels didn't move, didn't activate any visible shields, didn't react at all. The beams hit and dissipated, spreading out across invisible barriers like water on glass. Not a single human ship showed any damage. What just happened? The commander demanded. Full power. All ships. Target those vessels. Every ship in the Vrex fleet opened fire. The space between the fleet and the human defensive line lit up with energy weapons, missile contrails, and particle beams. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. And then, suddenly, everything went dark. Every Vrex ship lost power simultaneously. Weapons stopped firing. Engines went offline. Life support systems switched to emergency backup. Even the communication systems went dead. 43 massive warships, each one a marvel of Council engineering, became nothing more than floating metal coffins. The emergency systems came back online after 30 seconds. Just enough to keep the crews alive. But nothing else worked. The ships were dead, in space, completely helpless. A new transmission came through on the emergency channel. It was a human voice, calm and professional. This is Captain Henry Park of the Earth Defense Force. Your vessels have been disabled but not damaged. Your crews are safe, and life support is functioning. We will now tow your fleet to the edge of the solar system. Once there, we will restore your ship's systems remotely. Consider this a demonstration of capability. The next time you enter Earth's space without permission, we will not restore life support. Do you understand? The Vrex commander, sitting in his darkened bridge with only emergency lighting, understood perfectly. The humans had just done something impossible. They had disabled an entire fleet without firing a shot, without destroying anything, with a precision that suggested they could target individual systems on each ship. Over the next 6 hours, human ships towed the helpless Vrex fleet to the edge of the solar system. True to their word, once the fleet crossed beyond Pluto's orbit, the systems came back online. Engines restarted. Weapons powered up. Communication systems restored themselves. And every ship received the same message. Next time, life support stays off. The Vrex fleet retreated in complete silence. They simply left, carrying with them the knowledge that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. When the news reached the Galactic Council chamber, the reaction was immediate and chaotic. Species that had laughed at Kyle Manning's speech now shouted over each other, demanding answers. How had the humans done this? What other capabilities did they have? And most importantly, what did this mean for the Council's authority? Tharn stood before the Council, his pride shattered, and delivered his report. Earth had technology the Council didn't understand. Earth had capabilities the Council couldn't match. And Earth had made it very clear that they would defend their independence with whatever force was necessary. The laughter had stopped. In its place was something the Council had not felt in centuries: genuine fear. The first crisis appeared within 3 days of Earth's severance. It started on the colony world of Polaris 6, a bustling trade hub with a population of 8 billion. The local hospital administrator sent an urgent message to the Pelian Union government. They were running out of Synthesin 7, a critical medication used to treat radiation poisoning, and their supplier couldn't get any more. The reason was simple. Synthesin 7 was made from a compound found only in a specific type of Earth moss. Without access to Earth, the supply chain had collapsed overnight. Senator Vrix of the Pelian Union stood in his office, reading report after report of similar problems. Medical facilities across his territory were reporting shortages of dozens of Earth-derived medicines. His agricultural ministry warned that 3 major food crops depended on Earth-developed fertilizers. His technology sector was screaming about interrupted supply lines for rare Earth elements. How did we become this dependent on one planet? He asked his aide, a younger Pelian woman named Saris. It happened slowly, over decades, Saris replied, pulling up data on her tablet. Earth provided these materials at very cheap prices, cheaper than anyone could match. So gradually, other suppliers went out of business. Now Earth supplies 34% of the Council's food, 60% of critical medical compounds, and 42% of rare Earth elements used in ship construction. Vrix sat down heavily. And the Council classified them as a junior species. We treated them like children, while they became the foundation of our entire economy. Sir, we weren't the only ones, Saris said. Every species in the Council became dependent on Earth. The difference is, we treated them better than most. We might be able to negotiate with them. The round, 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 the round. Vrix nodded slowly. It was time to start thinking about alternatives to the Council's hardline approach, because the alternative was watching his people suffer. On the Quillari homeworld, the trade consortium that had controlled galactic commerce for 2 centuries was falling apart. The Quillari had built their fortune on a simple model. Buy resources cheap from exploited species like Earth, sell them expensive to everyone else, and pocket the difference. It had made them incredibly wealthy. Now that model was collapsing. The Quillari trade minister, a being named Quex, who had personally negotiated many of Earth's unfair trade deals, watched his fortune evaporate in real time. The rare Earth elements his consortium had stockpiled were running out, and without Earth, there was no way to get more. His buyers were canceling contracts. His partners were demanding refunds. His entire empire was built on resources he could no longer access. We need to force Earth to resume trade, Quex told his board of directors. Use the Council's military if necessary. Blockade their planet. Make them understand they cannot survive alone. But one of his directors, an older Quillari named Tesh, shook her head. Did you not see what happened to the Vrex fleet? The humans disabled 43 warships without firing a shot. What makes you think a blockade would work? They're bluffing, Quex insisted. That display was smoke and mirrors. They cannot possibly have the technology they claim. Then you're a fool, Tesh said bluntly. I've reviewed the sensor data. The humans did something our best scientists cannot explain, and if they can disable a Vrex fleet, they can certainly disable any blockade we try to establish. The board meeting dissolved into arguments, but Tesh left early, already planning to contact Earth directly. If the Quillari consortium was going to collapse, she at least could try to build something new from the ruins. In Earth's command center, Ben Carter read the economic reports with satisfaction. Ben was a calm, methodical man in his 40s, with dark hair and an accountant's mind for numbers. He had spent the last 10 years as Earth's secret trade negotiator, preparing for this moment. He knew exactly how dependent the galaxy had become on Earth's resources. He had helped engineer that dependency. We're receiving thousands of communication requests, his assistant told him. Species from across the Council, all wanting to negotiate new trade deals. Most are offering much better terms than before. Ignore them all, Ben said, except for specific species on our list. Senator Vrix of the Pelian Union, High Advocate Saris of the Corian Assembly, and anyone else who treated us fairly during the Council years. Those we'll talk to. Everyone else can wait and see what happens. What about the Quillari? Quex has sent 50 messages in the last hour. Ben smiled coldly. Especially ignore the Quillari. Let them sweat. They made billions exploiting us. Now they can find out what it feels like to be powerless. Nicole Price, Earth's new Minister of Interstellar Affairs, sat down across from Senator Vrix in a secure communication room. The Pelion appeared on the holographic display, his blue skin looking tired and his movements slower than usual. Minister Price, thank you for agreeing to speak with me, Vrix said. I know my people were part of the council that exploited yours. I want to apologize for that. I, Senator, I appreciate your words, Nicole replied. She was a woman in her 50s, with brown skin and gray streaks in her black hair. Her voice was professional but not cold. But Earth isn't interested in apologies right now. We're interested in action. What kind of action? Fair trade, Nicole said simply. My people are willing to resume shipping medical supplies to your worlds, but not at the prices the Council forced us to accept. We want market value, paid in resources or technology we actually need. And we want a guarantee that the Pelion Union will support reforming the Council to treat all species as equals. Vrix didn't hesitate. Done. Send me the terms, and I'll sign them today. My people need those medicines, and frankly, I agree with your position. The Council's system was wrong. It's time for change. Nicole allowed herself a small smile. Then we have an agreement. I'll have the first shipment ready within a week. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Species that had treated Earth fairly, or at least not participated in the worst exploitation, found willing trading partners. Species that had grown rich off Earth's subjugation found themselves isolated and facing shortages. But not every species was willing to negotiate. In the Vrex Empire's capital, Tharn met with his military advisors. The humiliation of the disabled fleet still burned in his mind. The Vrex had built their reputation on military strength, and the humans had made them look weak in front of the entire galaxy. We need to respond, Tharn said. If we appear weak, every subject species in our territory will consider rebellion. The Council's authority depends on the belief that we can enforce our will. What do you propose? His chief advisor asked. Another fleet? The humans disabled 43 ships. Do you think 100 ships would fare better? We assemble a massive force, Tharn said. Not just Vrex ships, but vessels from every Council species. 2,000 ships. Maybe more. The humans cannot possibly disable that many at once. We force them to surrender, restore the Council agreements, and make an example of Earth. Show the galaxy that rebellion has consequences. And if we fail? The advisor asked quietly. Tharn's eyes narrowed. Then we all fail. Because if the humans can defeat the Council's combined military, then the Council no longer has any authority. But I don't believe they can. I think their little trick with our fleet was a one-time capability, something they exhausted. This time, we'll overwhelm them with numbers. Plans began to move forward. Tharn reached out to military commanders across Council space. Most were eager to participate, either from loyalty to the Council or from fear of what Earth's independence meant for their own territories. A few refused, unwilling to risk their fleets after what happened to the Vrex. But enough agreed that within weeks, a massive armada began to assemble. Linda Foster watched the Council's military preparations through Earth's surveillance network. Human sensors, far more advanced than the Council knew, tracked every ship movement, every communication, every strategic discussion. They're gathering a fleet, she told Patricia Wells during a secure call. Current estimates say 2,000 ships, possibly more. The largest military force assembled in Council space in 200 years. Patricia felt her stomach tighten. Can we handle that many? Yes, Linda said without hesitation. But it will be a clear demonstration of our capabilities. After this, there will be no doubt about Earth's position in the galaxy. We'll either be respected as equals, or the Council will be too terrified to ever negotiate fairly. Is there a third option? Patricia asked. Linda was quiet for a moment. War. Real war. Not just demonstrations. If the Council refuses to accept Earth's independence, even after we disable this fleet, they might decide that destroying us is the only option. At that point, things get very dangerous for everyone. Patricia nodded. She had known this day might come. Earth's plan had always been risky, but the alternative was another century of exploitation, of being treated as a junior species, of watching other civilizations grow rich off human labor while Earth remained poor and restricted. Then we proceed, Patricia said. But Linda, when this fleet arrives, I want you to give them every chance to back down. Make it clear what will happen. Let them choose to leave peacefully. If we have to demonstrate our capability again, so be it. But let's try to avoid actual bloodshed. Agreed, Linda said. We're not looking to start a war. We're looking to end one that's been going on for 47 years. The Council just never called it a war because they were winning. As Earth prepared for the coming confrontation, Ben Carter finalized trade agreements with 12 species. Nicole Price opened diplomatic channels with another 20. And Greg Santos continued his research, developing new technologies that would keep Earth ahead of any Council attempts to match human capabilities. The galaxy was changing. The old order, built on exploitation and military might, was cracking, and Earth stood at the center of that change, neither seeking to rule nor willing to submit. Captain Henry Park stood on the bridge of the EDF Valiant, watching his tactical display. 50 human ships surrounded him, positioned in a defensive formation between Earth and the incoming threat. Against them came 2,000 warships from across Council space. The numerical difference was absurd. Any traditional military analyst would call this suicide. Henry was calm. He had been briefed on Earth's real capabilities. He knew what was about to happen, but he still felt the weight of the moment. This battle would determine Earth's future. One way or another. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake was young but steady, and Henry trusted her completely. The Council fleet is approaching weapons range. Estimate contact in 15 minutes. Open a channel to the Council fleet commander, Henry ordered. Let's give them one more chance. The holographic display showed Tharn, the Vrex security director. The alien looked confident, almost smug. Behind him on his flagship's bridge, Henry could see dozens of crew members working at stations, preparing for battle. Captain Park, Tharn said, I'm surprised Earth sent so few ships to defend itself. Surely you realize you cannot win this engagement. Director Tharn, I'm authorized to offer you one final opportunity to withdraw, Henry said calmly. Leave our solar system now, and there will be no further conflict. Stay, and we will disable your entire fleet. Tharn laughed, a harsh sound that came through the translator as something between a cough and a growl. Disable 2,000 ships? Captain, your earlier trick may have worked against a small patrol fleet, but this is the Council's full military might. You are outnumbered 40-1. I'm offering you the chance to surrender now. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Earth will return to Council authority, and your leadership will face trial for this rebellion. I see, Henry said. Then we have nothing more to discuss. You have been warned. He closed the channel. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. Every person in the room knew what was coming, but there was still tension in the air. So many ships. So many ways this could go wrong. All ships, maintain formation, Henry ordered. Defensive posture only. Do not fire unless I give explicit orders. We let them make the first move. The Council fleet advanced. 2,000 ships, representing 40 different species and military traditions. They moved in a massive formation. Shields at maximum. Weapons charged. In the command center on Earth, Linda Foster watched through dozens of camera feeds and sensor displays. Patricia Wells stood beside her. Along with Kyle Manning and Greg Santos, they were all present for this moment. The culmination of 3 decades of preparation. The AI systems are ready, Greg reported. We have complete mapping of every ship in their fleet. Power systems. Weapon controls. life support, communication, propulsion, everything. How long to disable them all? Linda asked. 7 seconds, Greg said. Maybe 8, if some of their ships have unusual configurations. Patricia shook her head in wonder. 7 seconds to disable 2,000 ships. If someone had told me this was possible 5 years ago, I would have thought they were insane. The Council still thinks in terms of weapons and shields, Greg explained. They try to destroy enemy ships with firepower. We took a different approach. Why destroy a ship when you can just turn it off? On the Valiant's bridge, Sarah Blake's console began beeping urgent warnings. Sir, the Council fleet is targeting us. Multiple weapon locks. They're preparing to fire. Hold position, Henry said. All ships, do not engage. Maintain defensive posture. Tharn's voice came over an open broadcast channel, meant for all the human ships to hear. Last chance, Captain Park. Surrender now, or be destroyed. Henry didn't respond. He simply waited, counting down the seconds until the inevitable. The Council fleet opened fire. 2,000 ships launched their attacks simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, particle weapons, and exotic technologies from dozens of different species filled space with enough destructive power to shatter a planet. It was the most concentrated military strike in galactic history. Every human ship's shields lit up, absorbing the attacks. Not a single vessel took damage. The barriers held effortlessly, as if the massive assault was nothing more than a light breeze. Their weapons are ineffective, Sarah reported. Our shield technology is blocking everything. Now, Henry said quietly. In Earth's command center, Greg Santos pressed a single button. Across the solar system, human AI systems activated protocols they had been preparing for years. Sophisticated algorithms reached out through communication channels, sensor beams, and even the quantum fields that Council ships used for faster-than-light travel. In less than 8 seconds, those algorithms penetrated every ship's computer systems and executed their primary function: shutdown. 2,000 ships went dark simultaneously. Every weapon stopped firing. Every engine cut out. Every shield collapsed. Life support systems switched to minimal emergency power. Even the bridge lighting failed on most vessels, leaving crews in darkness lit only by emergency panels. The silence was absolute. Where moments before there had been the chaos of battle, now there was nothing but 2,000 floating hulks and 50 human ships, waiting calmly in formation. Henry activated the broadcast channel. Attention, Council fleet. Your vessels have been disabled, but not damaged. Your crews are safe. Life support is functioning at minimal levels. We will now explain what just happened, so that you understand Earth's position clearly. He gestured to Sarah, who transmitted a data package to every ship in the Council fleet. On thousands of bridges across hundreds of different species, crew members watched in horror as the information appeared on their emergency displays. For the past 15 years, Henry continued, Earth has been quietly mapping every system, every network, and every computer in Council space. Our artificial intelligence systems, which operate far beyond anything your species have developed, have identified security vulnerabilities in 94% of all Council infrastructure. Ships, stations, power grids, communication networks, banking systems, medical facilities, we can access them all. We can disable them all. On the flagship, Tharn stared at his emergency display in the dim light. The data package showed detailed schematics of his own ship's systems, down to individual components. It showed access points human AI had created in his network. It showed exactly how the humans had disabled his fleet, and it showed similar access points in infrastructure across Vrek space. Power plants, military bases, even the life support systems in his home city. You're saying you can shut down our entire civilization, Tharn said slowly, his voice transmitted on the emergency channel. Yes, Henry replied simply. We're not showing you this to threaten you, Director Tharn. We're showing you so that you understand. Earth doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to destroy the Council. We just want to be left alone. And we want fair treatment for any species that chooses to trade with us. But we will not be subjugated again. Ever. Ben Carter's voice came through on a secondary channel, addressing all the Council ships. I'm Ben Carter, Earth's chief trade negotiator. While your crews consider Captain Park's words, let me add some economic context. Earth supplies a third of the galaxy's food, more than half its medical compounds, and critical materials for ship construction. You need us far more than we need you. We're willing to trade, but only as equals. The days of exploitation are over. In the darkness of his flagship, Tharn made a decision. It was perhaps the hardest decision of his military career, but it was the only rational choice. Captain Park, I request permission to restore my ship's systems so that I can communicate with the Council. Permission granted, Henry said. But Director Tharn, understand this. We're restoring your systems as a gesture of good faith. But if any ship in your fleet makes a hostile move, we'll shut you all down again. And next time, we won't restore life support. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Tharn replied. Power began returning to the Council fleet. Engines came back online. Communication systems restored themselves. Weapons remained offline. A subtle reminder that Earth controlled what the Council ships could and could not do. Tharn immediately opened a priority channel to the Council chamber. The speaker appeared on his display, along with representatives from dozens of species. They all looked shaken. News of the fleet's defeat had reached them minutes ago. The humans have capabilities we cannot match, Tharn reported bluntly. Our fleet is intact only because they chose not to destroy us. They have access to our computer systems, our infrastructure, everything. Continued military action would be suicide. I recommend immediate negotiations on their terms. The Council chamber erupted in argument. But Tharn could see that most of the representatives were terrified rather than angry. They had just watched their greatest military force become helpless in seconds. The implication was clear. If Earth wanted to, they could shut down power on any Council world. They could disable any fleet. They could crash the entire galactic economy with a single command. Senator Vrix was the first to speak for the record. The Pelion Union supports immediate negotiations. We have already begun fair trade discussions with Earth, and they have proven to be reasonable partners. I move that the Council formally recognize Earth as an independent equal state and invite them to join a reformed Council structure. More voices joined his. Not all, certainly. Some species, especially those that had grown rich off the old system, still argued for finding a way to force Earth back under control. But the momentum had shifted. Fear had accomplished what fairness never could. On the Valiant, Henry watched the Council fleet begin withdrawing in orderly formation. No more attacks, no more threats. Just a long, quiet retreat to the edge of the solar system. Mission accomplished, Sarah said quietly. Henry nodded. But he felt no triumph, only relief. Earth had demonstrated its power without killing anyone. They had proven their point without starting a war. Now came the harder part. Building a new relationship with the galaxy, based on mutual respect rather than fear. In Earth's command center, Linda Foster allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 30 years of preparation. 30 years of secret development. 30 years of being patient while the Council grew complacent. It had all led to this moment. We're receiving communication requests from 70 different species, a communications officer reported. Most are requesting trade negotiations. Several are asking to join our defensive alliance. And the Council speaker is asking for a formal diplomatic meeting with Secretary General Wells. Patricia stepped forward. Schedule the meeting. But make it clear that Earth negotiates as an equal, not as a supplicant. The era of junior species is over. Kyle Manning smiled. 47 years ago, the Council had arrived at Earth with promises of partnership. Those promises had been lies. But now, Perhaps, real partnership was finally possible, not because the Council had become more moral, but because Earth had made it impossible for them to continue their exploitation. Sometimes, Kyle thought, the only way to earn respect was to make yourself too dangerous to dismiss and too valuable to destroy. Earth had done both. 3 months after the fleet incident, Nicole Price walked through the halls of the new council building on the neutral moon of Tarsus 7. The old council chambers on Zenith Prime had been abandoned, a symbolic break from the past. This new facility was designed differently, with equal spaces for all member species and no elevated platforms or positions of superiority. She was heading to meet with representatives from 47 different species, all of whom wanted to establish formal trade relationships with Earth. It was exhausting work, but necessary. Earth had broken the old system. Now they had to help build something better. Ben Carter waited for her in a conference room, reviewing documents on his tablet. He looked tired. They all were. Negotiating fair trade agreements with dozens of species was harder than anyone had expected. Mainly because many of those species had never practiced fair trade before. They were used to exploitation flowing in one direction or another. How did the meeting with the Korean delegation go? Ben asked. Better than expected, Nicole replied, sitting down. They're willing to pay market rates for our medical supplies. And in exchange, they're offering unrestricted access to their shipyard technology. Not that we need it, but it's a good faith gesture. What about the Quillari? Nicole smiled slightly. Quex's consortium finally collapsed completely. Tesh, one of his former board members, has formed a new trading company. She's requesting a meeting to discuss establishing ethical trade practices. I think she's sincere. And the ones who aren't sincere? Ben asked. They can trade with each other. Nicole said simply. We're not going to waste time with species that still think they can cheat us. There are plenty of others who understand the new reality. In the council's main chamber, Patricia Wells stood beside Kyle Manning as they prepared for the first session of the reformed Galactic Council. This was the culmination of months of negotiation. The old council structure had been completely dismantled. The new one had a simple founding principle. All species were equal members, regardless of their technological level or military strength. Are you ready for this? Kyle asked quietly. Patricia nodded. Ready as I'll ever be. Though I never imagined when I became Secretary General that I'd be helping to restructure galactic civilization. You didn't restructure it, Kyle said. You just forced them to live up to the principles they always claimed to have. The chamber filled with representatives. Some were familiar faces from the old council. Species that had supported Earth, or at least not participated in the worst exploitation. Others were entirely new. Junior species that had never been allowed full membership before. Earth's demonstration of power had opened the door for other exploited civilizations to demand equal treatment. Senator Vrix called the session to order. He had been elected as the first speaker of the Reformed Council, a position that now had limited power. The new council operated more like a forum for discussion and cooperation, rather than a governing body that could enforce its will on member species. The first order of business, Vrix announced, is to formally welcome Earth as a founding member of the new Galactic Council. Ambassador Manning, would you like to say a few words? Kyle stood and walked to the central podium. He looked around the chamber, seeing representatives from dozens of species watching him. Some with respect, some with fear, some with curiosity. 3 months ago, Earth withdrew from this council because we were tired of being treated as inferior, Kyle began. We didn't want to dominate the galaxy. We didn't want revenge. We just wanted to be treated with the same respect as any other sentient species. Today, we return to this council as equals, and we welcome all of you as partners in building something better than what came before. The chamber remained quiet. Kyle continued. The old council was built on hierarchy and exploitation. The strong took advantage of the weak, and everyone accepted this as normal. Earth has proven that this system only works as long as the exploited species accept it. We refused to accept it any longer. And in doing so, we've created an opportunity for real change. He paused, looking directly at several representatives who had been part of the old council leadership. Some of you are here because you genuinely believe in equality. Others are here because you're afraid of what Earth might do if you refuse. I understand that, but let me be clear. Earth is not interested in becoming the new oppressor. We're sharing our technology with allies. We're establishing defensive pacts with species that want mutual protection. We're trading fairly with everyone who approaches us in good faith. And we're leaving alone the species that want nothing to do with us. Patricia watched from her seat as Kyle spoke. He had changed over the past few months. The frustrated ambassador who delivered the severance speech had become a statesman, someone who understood that breaking the old system was only the first step. Building something new required patience and diplomacy. On Earth's moon base, Greg Santos gave a presentation to a small group of scientists from 12 different species. These were researchers who had requested to learn about human technology, and Earth had agreed to share certain information as part of building new alliances. Claire Murphy stood beside him, helping to explain concepts that were difficult for alien scientists to grasp. The key difference, Greg was saying, is that council technology focused on using exotic particles and quantum fields. Your faster-than-light drives, your shields, your weapons. All based on manipulating quantum states. This works. Obviously. You've built an impressive civilization with it. One of the alien scientists, a small reptilian being from the Korean assembly, raised a hand. But you found a different approach? We found several different approaches, Greg replied. Gravitational wave manipulation for FTL travel. Electromagnetic resonance barriers instead of quantum shields. And most importantly, advanced artificial intelligence for system control and cyber warfare. The Council banned AI research for safety reasons. We didn't, and that gave us capabilities you never developed. Why share this with us? Another scientist asked. A floating jellyfish-like being similar to the old council speaker. If your technology advantage is what protects you, why help us match it? Claire answered this one. Because Earth's security doesn't depend on being the only ones with advanced technology. It depends on having allies who respect us and enemies who fear us. By sharing technology with friendly species, we create a network of mutual defense. And by demonstrating what we can do, we discourage hostile species from attacking anyone. Greg nodded. Plus, we're not sharing everything. The AI systems that allow us to disable enemy ships, for instance, that remains exclusively human technology. We'll use it to defend ourselves and our allies, but we won't give anyone else the ability to do what we did to the Council fleet. The presentation continued for hours. By the end, the alien scientists left with their minds full of new ideas and a healthy respect for human ingenuity. Several of them privately wondered why the Council had ever thought it was a good idea to restrict Earth's development. All they had accomplished was giving humanity decades to develop in secret, without oversight or competition. Back in the Council chamber, the first major policy debate was underway. The question: what to do about species that still practiced exploitation of weaker civilizations? The Vrex Empire, diminished but not destroyed, had been surprisingly supportive of reform. Tharn himself had argued that the old system made the entire galaxy weaker by preventing talented species from contributing fully. But several other species, particularly those that had grown wealthy through exploitation, were resisting change. Patricia stood to address the Council. Earth's position is simple. We will trade fairly with any species that approaches us in good faith. We will share defensive technology with allies who commit to ethical treatment of all sentient beings. And we will use our capabilities to protect species that cannot protect themselves from exploitation. A representative from the Sorin Dominion, a species known for its aggressive colonization of inhabited worlds, stood up. You cannot appoint yourselves as the galaxy's police force. Who gave you that authority? We took it. Patricia replied calmly. Just like your species took the authority to colonize worlds, and displace native populations. The difference is, we're using our power to protect rather than exploit. If you don't like that, you're welcome to try stopping us. We've seen how well that works. The Sauron representative sat down without another word. The message was clear. Earth wasn't asking for permission to enforce ethical standards. They were simply doing it, and anyone who objected could end up like the Council fleet, floating helplessly in space while their systems were offline. Linda Foster watched the Council proceedings from Earth's command center. She had been invited to attend in person, but preferred to remain at her post. Even with the new Council structure and Earth's dominant position, she never forgot that security required constant vigilance. "Director, we're detecting a small fleet approaching the Tarnax system," one of her officers reported. "It matches the signature of the species that was raiding Tarnax colonies last month." "Has Tarnax requested our assistance?" Linda asked. "Yes, ma'am. They signed a mutual defense pact with us 2 weeks ago." Linda nodded. "Dispatch the EDF Liberty and a support squadron. Disable the raiding fleet and escort them out of Tarnax space. If they return, we escalate to more permanent solutions." It was becoming routine. Species across the galaxy were learning that attacking Earth's allies was a bad idea. The human defensive doctrine was simple. One warning, one demonstration, then consequences. So far, no one had pushed past the demonstration phase. Most aggressors chose to back down rather than face the humiliation of having their entire fleet disabled. 5 years after the severance, Greg Santos walked through the same moon base where Earth's revolution had been planned. But now it looked completely different. Half the facility was occupied by joint human-alien research teams, working on projects that combined human innovation with alien knowledge. Claire Murphy, now a senior researcher in her own right, walked with him through the corridors. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Everything we did to get here?" Greg thought about the question. "No. The Council gave us no choice. We could accept permanent subjugation or fight for independence. We chose to fight smart rather than fight hard, and we won without killing anyone. Which is more than most revolutions can say. Some species still resent us," Claire pointed out. "Of course they do," Greg said. "We disrupted their comfortable exploitation. But most species are better off now. Fair trade benefits everyone, except those who profit from cheating. And frankly, I don't care if cheaters resent us." They reached an observation deck with a view of Earth. The blue planet hung in space, beautiful and peaceful. Down on that world, 8 billion humans lived their lives, most of them barely aware of the galactic transformation their species had caused. "What do you think happens next?" Claire asked. Greg smiled. "We keep adapting. We keep innovating. We keep finding better ways to do things. That's what humanity does best. The Council made a mistake, assuming we would follow their path. We found our own path, and now the galaxy is better for it." In Geneva, Patricia Wells sat in her office, reviewing reports from across human space. Trade agreements with 72 species. Defense pacts with 41. Joint research projects with 38. Earth had gone from being an exploited junior species to being the most influential civilization in known space, all in less than 5 years. Kyle Manning entered her office, looking exhausted but satisfied. He had just returned from another marathon negotiation session. "The last holdout species finally agreed," he said. "Fair trade practices across their territory. No more forced labor of subject species, and open membership in the Council for any civilization that wants to join. That makes it unanimous. Every major species in the galaxy has committed to the new system." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Hard to believe sometimes. When we started this, I wasn't sure we'd survive the first week. Now we've reformed galactic civilization." "We didn't reform it alone," Kyle said. "We just showed everyone that change was possible. The species that actually believed in equality did most of the work, convincing everyone else." "True," Patricia agreed. But we were the ones who made it safe to believe in equality. Before Earth severed ties, anyone who spoke up against exploitation got crushed. We changed the equation. Kyle sat down. What do you think our legacy will be? 100 years from now, how will they remember this? Patricia considered the question. I think they'll remember that a young species, classified as primitive by the powers that be, refused to accept that classification. We didn't conquer the galaxy. We didn't destroy our enemies. We just made it impossible for them to ignore us or exploit us. And in doing so, we created space for a better system to emerge. Not bad for a species that barely had faster-than-light travel a generation ago, Kyle said with a smile. No, Patricia agreed. Not bad at all. Outside her window, the sun was setting over Geneva. Across the city, across the planet, across the solar system and beyond, humanity continued its work, building relationships, sharing technology, defending the weak, trading fairly. Not because they sought to rule the galaxy, but because they had proven they didn't need to. Earth had severed all galactic ties 5 years ago. The Council had panicked, and from that panic had come something better. A galaxy where strength was measured not by the ability to exploit others, but by the willingness to cooperate as equals. It wasn't perfect. Many problems remained, but it was better than what came before. And that, in the end, was all humanity had wanted. Not perfection, just better. A chance to be treated with dignity. An opportunity to contribute on their own terms. The freedom to walk away from a bad deal and the strength to ensure no one could force them back. They had achieved all of that, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever.